This is the Corvallis Transit Center, and I've been here many times before and mentioned it many times before, but I realize I've never totally just talked just about transit in Corvallis, so that's what I'm going to do today. So one thing about Corvallis and the transit center is that all the buses stop here. There's no buses that don't pass by the transit center. So it makes going from one bus to another really easy. Another thing is, unlike some cities where there's a 4, 8, 35J, and 215X, the Corvallis buses are basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They'll stop at these different shelters. There actually is a 20 and a 50, but those don't really count. So, and also the buses, they all stop either here at 0, 15, 30, or 45, depending on their schedule. So it's also really kind of orderly and neat. Along here, on the outside of the transit center, this is where the non-Corvallis buses stop, including the bus to Philomath, the bus to Albany, the Coast bus, which I've taken many times, and the Adair Village bus, which I've taken once. And right across here, this is where Greyhound used to stop and still might stop. Since the Greyhound Flix merger, that's been changing around a lot. So everything is pretty central to this one place. There is a drinking fountain, and it actually works. That's nice. And so I'm going to go over there, and I'm going to find the number 2 bus, which is the first bus I'm going to take today. And another feature is that all fares on Corvallis buses are free. Free to ride the bus as much as you want. You don't need to register. You just get on the bus and ride. And I'll be talking about that once I get off my first ride, which is the number 2 bus, which should be coming from that direction in a minute. So we have a reader board here. Tells us where we are. So this is the bus shelter, and this is Samaritan Hospital, major endpoint for a lot of trips. So the number 2 bus, which I just got off of, goes up 9th Avenue, which is a central shopping district. Then it goes to the hospital, turns around and makes a little loop. And I'm going to look at my clock right now. So it was about 2:32 when I got off of the bus. And it was 2:18 when I got on. So 14-minute trip, and that was from one end to the other. And theoretically, it's supposed to do the trip in 10 minutes. So when we look at the fare-free thing, one of the reasons for that is that a lot of people are taking trips like 5 minutes would be an average trip probably. So even the time to collect fares, you know, there was 14, 17 people getting on the bus. That would slow down the journey for what's supposed to be a 10-minute loop. So that's one of the reasons why there are free fares, just because it takes a lot of time to collect them, and a lot of people, if they just want to go 10 blocks to the store, it would really discourage them from using the bus. There's the number 7 bus, which might be one of the buses I want, and I don't really know where its route goes, but I think it's going that way, and then I turn around and come back this way. So when I said that 9th Avenue is a shopping district, I meant it's a Strode. Here we have the AutoZone, the Rite Aid, the Bi-Mart. It goes on like this for, I don't know, half a mile back that way. But we are now leaving this road and entering this road. This is the route that I'm looking for, the Route 7. The route that I was just on, the Route 2, goes from the transit center, goes right up 9th Avenue and goes to the hospital, a little bit past here. As you can see with this route, if we were to make an Elliott deviance index for it, it would be pretty high. And also 60-minute frequency. So some of the bus routes, the 2, the 3, the 6, and the 5 are all really straight shots that go to obvious places. This one goes on a pretty complicated route. As you can see, it goes to Hewlett-Packard, which is a major employer, and that's probably why we have a bus specifically there. Also, you can see here we have a QR code, so I'm going to punch that in and I'm going to see how long I have to wait for this bus. This is good advice, even though it cooled down. Partly because the tropical storm Hillary, the remnants of it actually brought air in, because the remnants came this far north, cleared away the smoke. Anyway, we have 10 minutes to wait here. And as you can see, even though this is not on a frequent route, we have this bus shelter and a trash can, and everything is very well maintained. So in general in Corvallis, the buses are well maintained and comfortable. And here we are. This is the number 7 bus about to turn, and I'm about to get on it. The Timber Hill Shopping Center. I said there was only one transit center, but this is kind of the secondary transit center. See, there's 2 whole bus shelters here. It's like the brain at the back of a stegosaurus that we used to believe in. And one of those is one of those frequent service out and back routes, the number 5, which I'm waiting for. And the other is the 7 and the 1. And so the out and back routes are really fast, but there's really not a lot of network potential here. I took another bus to get here. I took that number 7 bus to get here, but I could have probably walked here quicker between 9th and King's, about 10 blocks. So I waited to do it, but those other routes, they don't really add a lot of network potential to the bus system. So I'm waiting here for about 10 minutes for the bus coming from that direction. That bus that just passed by is the number 1 bus. That's one of the hourly buses. It goes on a big loop by Martin Luther King Park and the Witham Hill Natural Area. So not the bus I was going to get on, because I'm going to go get on the number 5, which should be here any minute. And here we are, the number 5 bus going back downtown. I just got off of that number 5 bus. This is Kings Boulevard, and together with 9th, which it's parallel to, this would be about 20th. It's called Kings, but it would be about 20th. This is one of the major shopping streets, meaning there's a Fred Meyer here, basically. And right here we have Oregon State University. We have some student housing that I lived in a long time ago, even though I was never a student here. It's a scintillating story. And so that's also relevant, you know, when we talk about there's free transit, there's a lot of transit here. Corvallis is a pretty environmentally conscious city. The politics and society kind of go that way. And also, even without that, like with the university, a lot of times you have high population densities, and you have a lot of young people who might not be driving. And you also have a lot of shopping and entertainment districts, so it makes sense that, you know, you get a lot of bus travel in those conditions. So for all of those reasons, Corvallis has a lot more transit and a lot better transit than similarly sized cities. Compared to Albany, for example, it is a lot better. There's 2 bus routes in Albany, and they run on very inefficient loops as opposed to 9 in Corvallis, even though they are about the same size. And that's probably due to Oregon State University. I think it's also a case, and there is indeed specifically there is a night owl bus during the times the college is on. It's summer now, so not now. That a lot of the focus on transit is probably university wants to encourage transit usage, especially you have young people, alcohol. They want to discourage driving in certain cases. And so that's one of the reasons why I think they focus on transit. I'm not sure if that's ever been explicitly stated, but I think when you have a university town, that is a concern. You want to discourage any type of intoxication and driving as much as possible. And having free buses, especially ones that run late at night, can prevent a lot of trouble. Strangely enough, that's the Philomath Connection bus. I didn't actually know it came down this road. I'll have to remember that. And I was actually thinking earlier I would take that bus. I probably won't have time to do that today. That is a contracted service of the city where they provide a bus to Philomath. Runs about once an hour. Pretty short route, pretty efficient. I've taken it before. So I'm walking back to the transit center about 10 blocks from here. And one thing I was going to talk about, well, one thing I was not going to talk about is getting really into the poli-sci 101 discussion of, you know, how much a government should provide services. Is it fair that people have to pay taxes? You have to pay a city bill that pays for other people to ride the bus, even if you don't. Fascinating discussion, I'm sure. But instead I wanted to talk about in practical terms. In Benton County, there's 100,000 people. 70% of them live somewhere in Corvallis, either in these central districts or housing developments further out. And, you know, looking around Benton County, a lot of times, like when I'm in little rural areas, like when I came back from Junction City, sometimes I'll cross over a bridge and, you know, 24 people might use that bridge a day, as opposed to like when I got on one of these buses, there's 24 people riding one bus, or at least 12.5. Numbers made up. And so, you know, in practical terms, the yearly budget for the Corvallis bus system is about more or less what it would take to build one bridge or widen one road or repave one road in a rural part of the county. So, you know, that just looks at like what is fair, I don't know, but in practical terms, it's pretty efficient. It moves a lot of people. Speaking of density, we have some new housing going up, and of course I'm always sad to lose a park or open space, but it was pretty scrappy. So more student housing, all is a good thing. Any type of housing, all is a good thing. Anyway, so there are arguments, and I know there's lots of opinions about this on the internet, home of opinions, that free transit, that means that they won't be compelled, the service provider won't be compelled to provide as good of service because people aren't paying, and that added revenues increase service. And I understand that argument from a theoretical point of view, and I think in some cities it's true. But as far as Corvallis goes, service isn't perfect, but at least on the major routes it's efficient, it's pretty quick, usually on time or close, and we have working drinking fountains in the transit center. So in practical terms, there's not really a lot that I experience as being lacking within Corvallis as far as transit goes. So we are back at the transit center. The 1 and 8 are here. But the 6, which goes down 3rd, is not going to be here for 20 minutes. Maybe I should take back my thing about the service is pretty efficient. Of course, you know, if I would have not gotten off of the 5 and walked, I would have been here earlier, could have taken it. Anyway, so I have a little while to kill before I take that bus, so I'm just going to hang out here. The transit center is on the same block as City Hall. That allows me to make a point. In Corvallis, like in a lot of smaller cities, the buses are directly part of the city government, not part of a transit agency, which is usually the case in larger cities. And while they are part of the city, the buses themselves are driven by buses that are contracted out to MTR Western, which is a company that operates a lot of city buses and a lot of long-distance buses like Flixbus and the Point buses in Oregon and Washington. And that's actually a pretty efficient system because that means that if buses wax or wane here, people don't lose their jobs. They just go to the pool and work somewhere else. And then the other thing about City Hall block, these are all government offices here. That probably has something to do with the way the routes are, because as far as I understand it, Corvallis does have a ward system of government, and so areas that might not have a lot of natural transit ridership, they still have a city councilor from that ward who's going to push and advocate for buses, which is why some buses like the 1 and the 7 and the 8 go to kind of out of the way places and don't have a lot of ridership. So this little tour around the government district of Corvallis lets us know more about why the buses are the way they are. Okay, now back to waiting. Here we are coming in to South Corvallis. So I just got off that bus and I'm going to go visit the park just for a second. Also on that bus, you know, there was never more than 6 or 10 people at a time, but over the time I was on the bus, lots of people got on and off, which is like what I said, a lot of people in Corvallis are taking this bus, the buses, for short hops. And as you can see, this area and most of Southtown Corvallis are more traditional residential. So you don't have as many college students, you don't have as much mixed use, dining and entertainment. So there's less of a bus presence here. There's only one bus line that goes to Southtown, and it kind of takes a ziggy-zaggy route that I never quite understand. But you can still get, you know, there's still bus service here once every 30 minutes. And in a while, I'm going to talk about this. It's windy right now. You can see that we're at the south end of Corvallis and we have open fields. And this is 99 West. It continues south past Kiger Island, Monroe, Junction City. And this is important when I talk about, Corvallis and what transit is like here. To me, Corvallis is an urban place. The Willamette Valley is pretty urban because for Oregon, this is the population center. But that can be confusing when I talk to people from the eastern US or from Europe, because Benton County, Oregon, population 100,000 people with a density of, I just looked it up, 120 people per square mile, 50 people per square kilometer. I just double checked those numbers. I did get them right. 50 people per square kilometer, 130 people per square mile. So in East Coast terms, less densely populated than New Hampshire, which on the East Coast is considered a rural area, and about 1/5 the population density of Wales, to put it in Western European terms. So sometimes I've had discussions with people online, mistake right there, and the definition of what like a small rural area is really changes, where people in Germany have said, I live in a little rural village of 250,000 people and we have train service, and to them that is rural. So Corvallis has 65,000 people. The county, which is much larger, has 100,000 people without any really major population centers. Monroe, which is 18 miles, 30 kilometers that way, has a population of 600, 800 people. So that kind of puts in perspective, why we have the transit service we do. And I'm not saying that there aren't other factors. We obviously have enough of a population to keep some busy highways. Anyway, so that along with what I've shown and what you can see right here, this is what this area looks like. Pretty small for many places in the world, but not small for me. The other thing is, we're talking about these buses, and there are long distance buses that go to the west and go to the east. But along 99 West, there's only the bus to Adair in the north. And then there is no bus down to Monroe or Junction City. And I really wish there was. Make some things easier for me, but for now, nope, that is not a thing. Okay, well, I hope that this showed a little bit and explained a little bit about why the city is the size it is and why it has the services it does. Also right here, this is not in general what you would call a walkable neighborhood. So this is my bus. It's going to loop around in that loop I took, and then it's going to turn onto this street and take a different route going through side streets back. But that's good. I have time to get to my stop and wait. This is my bus shelter. This is my bus stop. Kind of hard to see if you don't know that it's here. And supposedly in a minute, my bus will be coming this way. Interestingly enough, I was going to take one more bus today. I was going to take the 3 bus that goes west to the Sunset Shopping Center. There was road construction and this bus got delayed coming in, so I missed that bus. I saw it leaving when we were coming in. And also, I'm kind of tired right now. It's been 3 hours, which is a lot of times, but I did ride 4 different buses. I was not doing things the most efficient way. So this is the Corvallis Transit System. By the way, this is the shelter if you want to go to the coast. It's kind of off to the side. So, setting aside all the different, large-scale opinions about fareless transit, works fine for me. And this system works really well when it's those compact routes through this area of town. The shopping, dining districts, high-density residents, especially with college students. The less frequent routes with weird route through residential areas that get all twisty, not quite as efficient. But in general, I like it, and really looking at it, though, you have to look at this as a college town. This is in Oregon, so there's different social and political issues there. And also, even though this is big for Oregon, remember, 65,000 people or whatever, something close to that, not super large. So this is really good for what it can be. I like it, and I'll be seeing a lot of other transit systems, might not be covering them in this much detail.